We'll delve into saving our children with the base mother, parental rights, and anti-grooming advocate Elena Barbera on this episode of United Patriots Uprising with Gary Binford. I'm your host, Gary Binford. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is available at radioinfluence.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. The video version you can find at YouTube, Rumble, Conservative Television of America, the God, Family, and Country Television Network, and the Rose Unplugged Media Network. Wherever you go, please subscribe, click the notification button, leave a rating and a review, and please tell your friends about the show. I would like you guys to check out the Year in Review podcast. There are two podcasts, part 1 and part 2, the Year in Review, in which we look back at happenings and guests from 2024, and it includes Tom Holman, Kevin Sorbo, Naomi Wolf, Miranda Devine, Charlie Kirk, Sheriff David Clark, Dinesh D'Souza, Brigitte Gabriel, Morgan Brittany, Peter Navarro, Silk of Diamond and Silk, Nick Searcy, Pastor Alan Jackson, Alex Newman, Isabel Brown, Donna Fiducia, and Don Newen, and many others. Little short clips of what they had to say, and what they said then is just as valid today, so I hope you check that out. So just who is the base mother, and why did she become a YouTuber on her son's channel and make a documentary film on anti-grooming? Once she realized American children were being sexualized, this average American mother sprang into action. So are you ready to hear why we need to take back our children? Well, let's get into it. She's a Christian, a mom, and an author who tired of watching the country burn from the sidelines. So she took up the fight for our children with her new documentary, American Groomer. I welcome to the show, elated to the brains of the show, Elena Barbera. How are you, Elena?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
I'm really elated to have you on, because the most gratifying thing in my life ever was when I taught Sunday school, ages 7 to 12, and those kids are precious, and it's absolutely incredible what's going on here. Like, you were minding your business, just raising your son. So how and why did you become AKA the base mother? And it seemed like family pushback must have been an eye-opener to you. And is that part of why you got started?
Well, I got started on the internet when my son randomly asked me to do a Mom Reacts video with him when he was starting a YouTube channel. And all of a sudden this channel took off, and it was me and my son. So I got this sense of comfort. But at the same time, in real life, I was, watching the mainstream media lie day after day after day, see something that I knew to be true with my own eyes, and then see them report something else. So when they started reporting about people who were, quote unquote, banning books, I didn't necessarily believe everything that I heard. So I bought the books myself. And what I found in them was astonishingly obscene, vulgar, inappropriate for adults, never mind for children. And I couldn't believe that the mainstream media was defending these books and calling people who wanted to remove them fascists and Nazis. So I took what little I learned from my son's YouTube channel, and I started doing hardcore research on this and put together a documentary, which I had never done before. So it was a big effort.
You weren't independently wealthy, and believe me, it's a credit to you that you put this out for free, because we always thought the way to get things to the public, if you charge them, it really cuts down on getting the message out. And I just believe you as a believer would just say, hey, I'm going to do whatever God wants me to do.
That is exactly right. So I prayed about it before I did it, because I was so frustrated. And the prayer was, what do I do? And the answer was, make this documentary. And so just being the kind of person I am, I threw whatever resources I could muster together and produce this thing. I wrote it. I did all the research. It was the only other person who worked on it with me was my editor and cameraman who helped direct it. And thank God for him. He also volunteered his time, because we both believed in this. And charging for it, I knew that that would mean less people would see it. So I said, here goes, whatever. This is my investment in my country. And I believe it was brought to me through prayer, and we have to protect our children. And so if it costs me something, I'm okay with that.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And I'm a mature adult. I was in the music business for a lot of years, so I've seen basically everything there is to see. And I couldn't get, I got through it, but I was looking at the trailer and I'm like, now I've seen all this stuff, but see, it's different when you see it in a club. It's different when you see it in a hotel. It's different when you see it backstage or on a tour bus, but it's really cuts home when you see children around. This, it's, I don't even know what to say. So most Americans have no idea what's going on. So please fill them in.
Well, the things that you're talking about, some of them we're seeing them in public on the streets at these pride parades where you have, sex toys being shown to children and grown men and women walking around naked. But what I'm really focused on is another part of the problem, and that's our schools, and mostly our public schools, some private, where right from kindergarten and pre-K, they're starting to talk to children about their sexuality. And it very quickly, in some elementary and in almost all middle and high schools, there is hardcore pornography on the shelves of the libraries, the classroom libraries. It has now made it on its way onto summer reading lists. So it's not an official part of the curriculum in most places. But even what is an official part of the curriculum in most places goes way too far. And children do not need to know these things. I'm talking about, forgive me for saying this, but instructions on anal masturbation. Okay. How to take nudes of yourself and send them to people without getting caught. How to, make sure to pay for your porn. Different types of sexual relationships like orgies, threesomes, monogamous relationships, having open marriages. These are conversations that are being put in front of children.
Well, let's really give them the shock treatment. Tell them how far down the chain are they going? Like how soon? So I know people are saying, oh, okay, they're in high school, they can handle it. No. That's not what this is about. Tell them how low does this go down the educational chain?
So recently in Georgia, an organization called Take Back the Classroom that I work closely with, they just found some of the very, very erotic materials that I read from in other venues, not necessarily here, but that I read from in a K-8 school. So they will say, oh, this is just for the middle schoolers. It's fine. Middle school starts at age 11. So even if you don't give it to the third graders, the fourth graders, the fifth graders, that's okay to give it to them. Of course it's not. And advocates of this will, first of all say, well, children need to know these things. And first of all, that's absolutely absurd. Of course, they don't need to know these things. They'll say that if I'm particularly requesting a book is taken out, it's because I'm homophobic or I'm a racist, because some of these books tell stories that are enveloped in another story about, a Black experience or an LGBTQ experience, when that has nothing to do with it. The Supreme Court long ago ruled that books cannot be removed because of political ideology or philosophical differences, things that a school board doesn't like. But they absolutely can be removed if they have pervasive vulgarity in them. And so the key is to focus on the vulgarity and put your school board's feet to the fire and read it to them and say, do you think this is for children? And why do you insist on having this in our schools? And, it's going to be really hard for them to face the general public and say, I believe that this is for children. I don't know how they can do it.
Again, people, most Americans have no idea this is going on. Most people have blind faith in the government and the Department of Education not to be a part of this. Most people think that the government and the Department of Education has the best interests of our students. But please understand, this is a concerted effort by organizations and our government to normalize pedophilia. And the culprits include the teachers' unions, Planned Parenthood, the Human Rights Campaign, the Department of Education, all complicit in this, correct?
And you forgot the American Library Association. They just love this stuff. And people will say a couple things when I present them, right? They'll say, oh, this may be happening, but it's not happening in my district. Or they'll deny it's happening at all. This would never happen here. That's only happening in crazy blue cities. That is not true. This is happening in all 50 states. in districts in all 50 states. And anywhere that parents haven't gone and fought to have them removed, they're there because all those organizations you just mentioned have their fingers in all of our schools. And it's really sad. So one person that I pray gets fired on January 21st is a man named Matt Nonsanchek, and he's a deputy secretary at the Department of Education. And his whole mission is to fight people who are trying to have these books removed. And he put out a lot of materials working with the American Library Association and those organizations that we mentioned to teach people how to file a civil rights violations complaint when a book is removed. So they'll say that it's a First Amendment violation. But what that really does is just ties everybody up in red tape, because at the end of the day, we do have the legal right per the Supreme Court to remove these books. But that's what our government is spending money on, tying the American people up in red tape. Yeah.
So this is total craziness. So please tell me about the craziness of when you got into this discussion with family members.
So I got to talking to the family members, and this is what sent me into prayer, because I was telling them about all the things I was learning. And so there were about 10 of us on a Sunday afternoon sitting around the table. And some of them were thought I was being so ridiculous, and I was just learning things on some right-wing rabbit hole website, and they got up and left the table. Other ones stood there and challenged me, and only one family member, one I really didn't expect to know anything about this, he's actually a sergeant in the Army, and he was home on leave, and he started pulling things up on his phone and saying, no, she's right. Here it is. It's in Washington. It's in Oregon. It's in Texas. And he started busting out facts. And I was so grateful that he defended me, but I still really didn't get through. They just refuse to believe that it's true, because it is so unbelievable that we're doing this to our children. But as I got into the film, the things I learned, so I sat down in the film, I was granted interviews with some really cool people, like Terry Schilling from the American Principles Project. While I was interviewing him, he tells me about obscenity exemption statutes, which are laws that were placed in about 3/4 of states that make it okay to show pornography to a child in a school or a library. So if you show it to a kid on the street or at the mall, you can leave in handcuffs. It's a criminal offense. But you are exempted from criminal prosecution if you show it to a child in a classroom or a library, no matter how young the child, no matter how vulgar the pornography. The worst Hustler or whatever magazine you've ever seen, you could show it to a kid, and it's okay if you say, well, it was part of the lesson. It was okay. And when I learned that was the moment I realized that I didn't know anything. And it opens up a whole new world of dark information and that I started to chase. And since the film was finished, I've learned so much more. And the vulgarity in these books has gotten so much worse. And now they're producing them in multiple languages, because you can't just groom children in English. You have to groom them in every language.
Oh, this is terrible. You know, Elena, we used to protect our children. There used to be a time that if somebody even tried to give this to your kids, the parents would find out, they'd go, people would be almost arrested. Mm-hmm. So when did this start to go south? And how bad is it? Like, to learn that 39 states is legal to show porn to school kids. That's shocking.
Right. It is shocking. And well, when did it start to go south is hard to say. It's been a slow burn. Those laws started to get placed in the 50s and slowly happened across the states, through the 60s, the 70s, and even the early 80s. And little by little, these organizations that we mentioned, and we didn't include SECUS, is just a major sex ed, the Sexual Education Information Council of the United States, who is embedded deep in the DOE, and they provide a lot of these materials. They've just been crawling along and getting more and more and more vulgar. I mean, it's not only the vulgarity and the details about, sexual activity and sexual preference. They now just talk about abortion to children as if it's just an option, like getting a cavity filled. It's just a normal health procedure, the way the language that they use, which is also something that parents should be the ones who talk about that, and how we feel about this as a family. And so these organizations have been doing this slowly, and it's been happening over time. And I'm learning now, coming into this fight late, that there are people who have been in this fight for decades and screaming into the void, and no one's been listening. And some of them say to me that, we've been praying for more light on this for years, and like, thank you. They're telling me, thanking me for, coming out swinging to the best of my ability. I'm like, if I knew sooner, I would have fought with you sooner, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's very much like communism. It's been over 100-year climb in this. Frankfurt School came over in the 30s. That took place in Columbia University, branched out through the Ivy Leagues and into major universities. And Gramsci's cultural Marxism. All of this has been Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, and Barack Obama took it to another level. It's been a slow, evil climb. So I guess the question is, I'm going to ask you, and you can answer this two ways, because I really think there's a secular answer and there's a biblical answer. And the question is, why is this happening? Why?
Okay, yeah, the biblical answer is, you could probably answer better than I could, but we know it's going to get
You're
worse.
the guest.
We know it's going to get worse before it gets better. And all things, the devil will use everything he can, and coming after our children and breaking down our family, which is a big part of this, breaking down the family unit. He is doing a fantastic job, and we're allowing it, and we have to stop it. We have to continue to fight right until the very end. But the secular worldview reason also has to do with the devil, right? I mean, it is evil taking over. I think that there is an actual effort to normalize pedophilia and sexualizing the children from when they're little and they're in schools is a groomer's paradise, because a pedophile, a sex trafficker, a creepy neighbor, whoever it is, does not have to put in the work to groom the child. They're coming out of school groomed. And, when you start talking to them then about things that are inappropriate, the kid instinctively knows this is wrong and we shouldn't be having this conversation. But the kid has the conversation anyway, because they've been told in school that this is normal for you to be doing. It's nuts.
I hear you. Yeah. Now, you're going to have to explain what grooming is and anti-grooming. And here's why I say this. A lot of people that have been watching the show, this is my 4th year, praise God. And grooming, to me, and a lot of us old school people back in the day, grooming was trying to look good. Like, I remember James Brown back in the day was my guy, and he always talked about grooming, keeping your hair right, dressing, being dressed and everything. So grooming to us old timers is a good term. Please explain what you mean by grooming and how they've, as we've seen a lot of things, what God meant for good, Satan means for evil. So grooming, which was supposed to be nice, that you'd like to look nice as a woman, I'd like to look nice as a guy. This isn't what they're talking about.
No. And people are often in another positive way groomed for particular roles in society. Look at somebody like Kate Middleton. Her mother groomed her to be a lady. And now she is, married to the future King of England. That was a success story. But this kind of grooming, if you start to look it up, there's a lot of different definitions, but the authority on it seems to be a retired FBI agent named Kenneth Lanning. And so I followed his definition of grooming, which is basically, it's a collection of behaviors and activities that a predator will enforce on a child. And it starts very slowly with building trust, right? Like, tell the kid a joke, give the kid a piece of candy, I'll give you a ride home from practice and nothing goes wrong. I maybe make you laugh, everything's nice. And then it leads into secrets. And now a dirty joke, and things like, oh, this is just between you and me, don't tell anybody. And the kid starts to develop more and more trust, and more bricks go up between the kid in the wall between the kid and the parents. And the next thing you know, this kid is ready and prepared to be sexually assaulted by this adult. It's just preparing is what it is.
Wow, and it's really really bad. I got a kick out of hearing. I was watching you on with Sam Sorbo and a couple other shows, and I got a kick out of your taking it to the street segment. Like you came to New York, and I'm here on Long Island, which is too close to Manhattan, but you came to New York and you took this to the streets. That takes a lot of courage, but tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I don't know where I got the nerve to do that, to walk up to people in Times Square. And I was able to get a lot of people to, and I had printouts from these books and I showed them and I said, this is in middle schools. And I asked them and I got a lot of mostly opinions that agreed with me that said, this is absurd. This can't be true. This isn't for children. And it was really hard, though. The hard thing about doing those street interviews is you approach 100 people for every like one or two people who will actually stop and talk to you. So it took a lot of tenacity, but I have this passion to get this done. I want people to know. There was one woman, a young woman I interviewed who I had shown her the illustration and instructions for anal masturbation that's in one of these books. And she said, well, if kids don't learn about it in school, where are they going to learn it? And
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to be normal because I'm on the street and I wanted to shake her and realize, that's the me. And instead I said, okay, well, how do you think teachers prepare for this lesson? And she said, oh, well, yeah, I could see how this could be hard. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. A teacher does not get trained, and nor should they, to teach a child how to stay home and perform sex acts on themselves. This is just absolute madness. And for anyone to advocate for this, the only thing I can think of is they are okay with pedophilia. Yeah. And because I just have not yet come across one single good explanation for giving this to kids. Not one.
I hear you. And I got a kick out of it that you said, gee, none of the blue-haired people would talk to me. I wonder why.
They saw me coming. I mean, I could have even dyed my hair blue and it would look like a disguise. They would know that this is just some conservative lady. They saw me coming a mile away.
Yeah. Well, please tell people like an American Groomer. We'll tell them a little bit later where they can get it. But if they get it and they get it for free and they can see it for free, what are they going to see and what are they going to learn?
So the film is 36 minutes long. It's pretty fast paced and jam packed. They're going to learn they're going to learn about what's going on in the schools, who is behind it. They're going to learn the history of how the sexualization of children as a mainstream effort in America started in the 1940s with a man named Alfred Kinsey, who published the results of sexual experiments on children. And then how he is connected to all the organizations that are still in play today and how he is connected to all the laws that came into place to allow this to happen. They're going to learn a little bit about how STDs are harming our children because of the over-sexualization of them at this age. And they're going to see some interviews with some people who are out there fighting, like Terry Schilling, like the group at Gays Against Groomers, like Mary McAllister at the Parental Rights Campaign. They're a legal firm that fights for parental rights and is fighting against gender ideology. So I had some brilliant people who were willing to talk to me and teach me about what's going on out there in this fight.
Wonderful. And I hope people go and watch this. And I'm glad you kept it short because sometimes it's tight, it's right. And people nowadays, their ability, there's just so much stuff out there. It's just so hard to get people to watch things for a long period of time. So I'm glad it's short but powerful. Make a final question here. Can you make a passionate plea to the people of what they can do to get involved in their communities, in their families, in their churches, or whatever they can do to try and help alleviate this problem?
I'm in on this. Okay, watch the film. Okay, go to AmericanGroomerFilm.com. You can watch it for free. That's your starting point, because then you're going to get as mad as the rest of us when you see it. And once you do, then share it with others, and then you go to an organization called TakeBackTheClassroom.com, who I work with, and they teach parents how to talk to their school boards to find out what's going on in the schools, and then how to challenge those books properly so they actually get removed. It is not that difficult to win this fight, but we need a few parents in every school district who are willing to lead the charge. And this can be done quickly. We just need the people to know and believe that it's happening, because it is.
And we got to start now, because if we don't start, it'll just keep getting worse and worse and worse. Mm-hmm. Elena, thank you for coming on and talking about this issue. Please tell people how they can reach you, on social media, and anything else you'd like to promote.
Sure. Again, the film is at AmericanGroomerFilm.com, and there you can reach me. There's a way to send me an email right from there, or you can find me I'm at The Based Mother on TikTok and Instagram, and also on Twitter, where I do, I share a lot of information about this issue. And I also, just as an American, like to, air my grievances with the political climate and the cultural demise that we're seeing in America.
And you have a podcast, right?
Yes, I have a podcast actually that's on Rumble. Thank you for helping me to do my thinking today.
Well, it's on other places but Rumble, but if you want to just name Rumble, isn't it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. I don't post everything on YouTube because I had a growing nice channel on YouTube, and they killed it. So this is just a little side channel that I keep now there. Okay. I was telling a little bit too much truth on YouTube, and they weren't into me.
Hey, join the club, Elena.
It's a badge of honor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor. And hopefully with President Trump returning to the White House, and these things are going to change. So God bless you. I know the hand of God is with you. This is very important because, as you know, Jesus, the children were so precious to him. And, that this is so important. And, God bless you. And thank you for coming on and for what you do.
Thank you so much.
There you have it. Elena Barbera. Please, people, go see the documentary and get as angry as we are. And let's do something about this. We got to save our children. They're our future. If they go down this rabbit hole, who knows what society will look like in future generations. So we have to stop this, people, right here, right now. I want to thank Elena Barbera for giving us the horror stories about what's going on with our school kids. We've got to stop this right here, right now, America. So I encourage everybody not only to see her documentary for free, American Groomer, but to tell your friends about it. This podcast is available at radioinfluence.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Hope you subscribe to it, leave a rating and a review, and be sure to tell your friends about the show. So that's it for now, everyone. So until the next time, this is your host, Gary Binford, saying God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America.